Now we're going to do a lesson on percent proportions. In this lesson, we will have 4 different parts of a proportion. We have a percent over 100, and we have a part over a whole. And we will be taking a look at finding unknown values. So, taking a look at this equation, we have to figure out a way that when we know what is a part, what is a whole, and what is an unknown, because the percent always has a percent sign on it. So we know that number. The part is going to be found by looking for the word is. The whole or the total, you're looking for the word of. And then the unknown amount, we will use the variable x for something that we do not know. So let's take a look at a couple of problems where we're missing the part. So, if we want to find 80% of 50, what we would do is, first of all, we always have to have the 80% over 100. Non-negotiable. Then we need to figure out, okay, of 50, well, that means since we're using the word of, that's going to be the total. The total always goes on the bottom. We're looking for the part would go on the top. In order to solve this problem, we would do 80 times 50, and we would get that result. Well, 80 times 50 is 4,000. And you have 100x. And the way you would solve that is you would divide by 100. So if we divide by 100, the answer here is 40. The key is knowing what each number is and where the variable goes. You're always going to start the problem with 100. The percent will always go above the 100. Then you've got to figure out which is the part and which is the whole. Typically, if you see the word of, that's the total. That's the whole. X is the part. In this problem, we'll do 75 times 24, just like the last problem. And we'll get 1,800. And then we're going to divide by 100. So 1,800 divided by 100 comes out to be 18. Let's take a look at 2 more just like that. So 50% has to go over 100 because the percentage always has 100. I see the word of 10. So that gives me the clue that that's going to be the total, and we're looking for the part. So we're going to do 50 times 10, which is 500. And we're dividing by 100, which is going to end up being 5. The last one like this, 60% over 100. Over here, it's of 40, so 40 is the total, and we're missing the part. So we're going to do 60 times 40. That comes out to be 2,400. And you're going to divide by 100. You divide by 100, that's going to give you 24. Well, let's take a look at a couple more problems that are different. However, the setup to these problems is exactly the same. When I read the problem, I want to know what 88% of what number is 33. I still am going to put the 88% over 100. But now, when you see the word is 33, that is the part. So we know 33 is the part. That means we don't know the total. We're still going to cross multiply. We're still going to do 33 times 100. And that gives me 3,300. But this time, we're going to divide by 88, which is the number that's across from the x. So dividing by 88 gives us 37.5. Let's take a look at the next one. 3 is, keyword there is, that tells me is, that's going to be the part. 2%, the 2 has to go over 100. And then we're looking for the total. So we have 100 times 3, which is 300. And we're dividing by 2, and that's ended up being 150. Let's take a look at two more just like that. 48%, 48 over 100 is 36. So the is the part. We're looking for the total or the whole. So we're going to do 100 times 36, which gives us 3,600. And we're dividing by 48. So we do 3,600 divided by 48 ends up being 75. Last one like this type. 8 is the key word. 8 is the part. 10% goes over 100. And we're looking for the total or the whole. 8 times 100 is 800. Dividing by 10 in this case. So the answer is going to be 80. Now the last 4 problems I have for you is asking for the percent. So the symbol that is required is going to be a percent symbol. Still the same procedure, except for one thing. Over the 100 is always the percent, and since we want to figure out what the percent is, that's where the x goes. What percent of 15, the total goes on the bottom, is 6 would be the part, goes on the top. So now I'm doing 100 times 6, which is 600, and I'm dividing by 15, and 600 divided by 15 ends up being 40, and you make sure you have a percent. If they're asking you for a percent, you better have a percent in your answer. 85 is what percent of 100? So we don't know the percent. That's over 100. 85 is, this would be the part, and the of part would be the total. So we're going to do 100 times 85, which is 8,500. And we're going to divide by 100. So my answer is going to be 85% because we were trying to find a percent. All right, let's take a look at the last two. So 64 is what percent of 80? So we don't know the percent. That's over 100. 64 would be the part, and 80 would be the total. 100 times 64 is 6,400, and then we're dividing by 80. So that comes out to be 80, but make sure you put up a cent sign because it's symbol required and we're looking for a percent. Last problem. We don't know the percent again. That goes over 100. 48 out of 75. 75 would be the total. 48 would be the part. So we're going to do 100 times 48, which is 4,800, and we're going to divide by 75, and that comes out to be 64, and make sure you have a percent because that's what the question was asking.